Montana Territory, August 1879. The wind howled across the dry grass as the sunset turned the sky to fire, and Olivia Mae Morrison tightened her grip on the porch rail of the sheriff's office, her heart pounding against her ribs. Sheriff Clive Danner stood just inside the doorway, his heavy frame blocking the last of the light. "You'll marry me, Olivia," he said, voice thick with liquor and arrogance. "A woman alone can't run a ranch out here, not without paying for it one way or another." "I never asked for your help," Olivia said, her voice shaking but steady. "And I will never marry you." Sheriff Danner stepped out into the light. His hand landed on the doorframe with a thud, his eyes narrowing. "You think folks will keep buying your beef once word spreads you refused me? You think I won't make life here hell for you?" Behind her, the distant clatter of hooves echoed from the ridge line. Olivia didn't flinch. She was done being afraid. She had already lost everything once: her husband to fever 3 years ago, her father to a fall off the upper barn loft before that. Now it was just her and her 5-year-old daughter, Ada, trying to hold on to their land outside Miles City. The Morrison Ranch wasn't much, but it was theirs, and she'd be buried in that soil before she let someone like Clive Danner lay claim to her or her child. "I'd rather starve on my land than live fat under your roof," she said. Danner's face darkened. "Then you'll get what's coming." A sudden gust of wind stirred the dust down the street. From the corner of her eye, Olivia saw a rider approaching, tall, lean, seated straight-backed on a dun-colored horse. His long black braid was tied with a strip of red cloth, and his eyes, dark as river stones, locked on her as he passed the general store. He dismounted in a single motion, silent as a shadow. "Evening," he said, voice low, steady. Danner turned. "This is town business, Lakota." The man's gaze didn't shift. Threatening a woman is not town business. It is cowardice. Olivia blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. He had not raised his voice, had not moved closer. And yet, the sheriff took a step back. "I warned you before, Yaska," Danner growled. "You stay out of what ain't yours." "She is not yours either," Yaska said. Danner's hand twitched toward his belt, but Yaska already stood between him and Olivia, calm as a still lake. "Go," he said. The sheriff gritted his teeth, then spat in the dirt and turned back into his office. Olivia exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. "I did not ask you to step in," she said once the door slammed shut. Yaska turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You did not need to. No woman should face that alone." She studied him in the fading light. He was younger than she'd thought, maybe 30, but his eyes carried something older, like he had seen more than most ever would. She had seen him before, twice maybe, trading hides at the post or leading ponies through the edge of the valley. Always quiet. Always alone. "I'm Olivia Morrison," she said, extending her hand. He looked at it for a moment, then took it gently. "I am Yaska." "Thank you," she said. He gave a small nod. "You have a child." "Ada." Olivia blinked. "How do you?" "I saw you at the well last week." She was chasing a frog. Her lips twitched despite herself. "She does that." Yaska looked toward the sheriff's office. "He will not stop." "No," Olivia said. "He won't." He looked back at her, then toward the road that led out of town. "You should not ride home alone." She hesitated, then said, "I will saddle my horse." They rode side by side in silence. The prairie rolled out around them, golden in the last of the light. Ada was waiting on the porch when they arrived, her hair a wild mess of curls, her face smudged with jam. "Ma," she called, running down the steps. Then she stopped, wary eyes flicking to Yaska. "It's all right, sweetheart," Olivia said, lifting her into her arms. "This is Mr. Yaska. He is a friend." Ada blinked at him. "Are you a real warrior?" Yaska crouched down until they were eye level. "I have fought when I needed to." "Do you know how to catch frogs?" Yaska tilted his head. "I do." Ada grinned, then buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Olivia met Yaska's eyes over her daughter's curls. "Thank you," she said again. "I will stay near," he said, "in case he comes." She nodded. "There's an old bunkhouse at the edge of the south field." "You're welcome to it." Yaska gave her one small nod. "I will not be trouble." "I believe you," Olivia said. That night, after Ada was asleep, she sat on the porch wrapped in a quilt, staring at the stars. The bunkhouse lantern glowed faint in the distance. She had been alone for 3 years. She had not meant to let anyone in again, not after losing everything. But Yaska had not asked to be let in. He had simply stood beside her, and something about that shook her more than Danner's threats ever could. Not fear. Hope. The morning after Yaska's arrival, Olivia rose before the sun and found the well pump stiff from the chill. She worked the handle slowly, careful not to wake Ada, who still slept curled beneath a worn quilt in the loft above. The pail filled with a metallic splash, and she set it down, wiping her hands on her skirt. Through the open barn doors, she could hear a horse shifting and low voices between two geldings in the corral. Yaska was already up. She found him near the trough, sleeves rolled to his elbows, mending a broken strap on one of her harnesses with a length of rawhide. He looked up only briefly when she approached, then returned to his work. "I didn't ask you to do that," Olivia said. "No," he replied, tying off the last knot. But it would not hold another day. She watched him test the leather, his movements precise, quiet. The horses stood calm near him, like they had nothing to prove. "I usually fix those after Ada's to bed," she said. "But last night, I didn't have much left in me." Yaska didn't ask why. He only handed her the repaired harness and said, "It is strong now." She hesitated. "You've worked with horses before." "I was a horse catcher before the army came," he said. "I still am, when I can be." She nodded and adjusted the harness over her arm. "I could use help baling the hay behind the barn. If you've the time." "I have time." They worked until midday, the sun high and dry. Olivia showed him the way her late husband had rigged the pulley between the hayloft and the flatbed wagon. Yaska studied it once, then took to it with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't waste movements. They spoke little, but not out of discomfort. There was a rhythm between them, soft and unfussy, as though they shared some unspoken understanding about where the other would move next. Later, when they paused beneath the cottonwood at the edge of the field, Olivia passed him a tin cup of boiled coffee and sat in the grass beside him. Ada played nearby, stringing dandelions together, humming a tune she'd picked up from the schoolteacher's piano weeks ago. "She likes you," Olivia said. Yaska took a sip, then passed the cup back. "She sees truth." "She's been wary of most men," Olivia said. "Since her father passed, she only takes to those who don't talk too much." "I understand that," he said. "Words are not always safe." Olivia turned the cup in her hands. "Where did you come from before here?" "North," Yaska said, "near the Tongue River. My people were forced south last winter. Some joined Red Cloud's camp. I came farther." "Why?" He looked up at the sky, then back to her. "Because I would not kneel." She didn't ask more. The air between them held weight, but not burden. She could feel the edge of something shifting, not fast, but steady, like the slow thaw of deep snow. That evening, as Olivia stirred a pot of beans over the stove, the front door creaked open. She turned sharply, soup ladle dripping. But it was only young Eli Brent, 18 winters, too thin, with a limp that hadn't healed right from a fall off a green mare. "Ma'am," he said, pulling off his hat. "Pa sent me. Said the sheriff come a skin if you had a hired man out there now." Olivia wiped her hands. "What did your pa say?" "Said you don't owe that man answers. Sheriff didn't like it." "Thank your pa for me," she said, heart tightening. Eli hesitated. "He said to be careful, ma'am." Danner looked. Set on something. Not drunk, not loud. Just set. When he left, Yaska stepped in from the porch. He had seen Eli ride off. "Danner is watching," she said. "He will try to make an example," Yaska said. Olivia nodded, swallowing the fear rising in her throat. "I don't want Ada near town for a while." "She should not be." "You'll stay?" she asked, voice low. Yaska met her eyes. "This land is not mine, but I will protect what is good in it." The wind picked up outside, rustling the eaves. Olivia stepped closer, the room dimming with dusk. His presence steadied her, not with boldness, but with something quieter, something earned. "You're not what I expected," she said. "I'm not what many expect," he replied. She didn't step away. "I'm not either." He looked at her then, really looked, and something shifted in his gaze, less guarded, more knowing. But he didn't touch her. Neither did she move. Outside, Ada called for her from the loft. Olivia turned, brushing a hand against Yaska's arm as she passed. He didn't watch her go, but he stayed. By the second week, Yaska had repaired the eastern fence line and helped Olivia set the last of the hay into the loft before the first storms. The work gave shape to the days, and though he never claimed the land as his, he moved through it with quiet purpose, as if honoring the rhythm it held. Late one afternoon, Olivia stood beside the shed sharpening a scythe when Yaska approached with a half-full basket of chokecherries slung over his shoulder. He set it down at her feet. "They're early this year," he said. She wiped the blade clean and nodded. "I'll try to boil them down before they spoil. Ada likes them with cornmeal cakes. She asked me this morning if buffalo could be kept like cows," he said, glancing toward the house. Olivia raised a brow. "And what did you say?" "That buffalo do not take kindly to fences." She smiled, then looked toward the hills beyond the pasture. "I've never known what it means to live without walls." Yaska crouched beside the basket, sorting the darker fruit from the underripe. "It is not always easy. Freedom does not mean peace. Not by itself." She knelt beside him, brushing her hands clean on her apron. "Did you lose your family?" "I lost my brothers in the Powder River country. My sister was taken to a mission near Yankton. My mother died last spring when the sickness came through the winter camp." She didn't speak for a while. The wind moved the dry grass, soft and low. "I'm sorry," she said. He nodded once, but did not look away. "You fight to keep what is yours. That is not weakness." "I was taught not to complain," Olivia said. "But lately I wonder if silence is just another kind of surrender." Yaska's voice was quiet. "Silence can be strength, but not when it keeps you from standing." A wagon creaked onto the front road then, and Olivia rose sharply. Ada came running from the coop, her bonnet askew. "Ma, it's Mr. Harlan." She wiped her hands and met the wagon halfway. Harlan looked down from the seat, his beard streaked with dust. "Brought the salt you asked for," he said. "But I came to warn you too. Danner's been asking after your stock permits. Says he might come to inspect." "I've got the papers in the ledger," Olivia said. "Doesn't matter. He's looking for an excuse, not answers." She glanced past him at the trail, her voice low. "Thanks for telling me." After Harlan left, Olivia found Yaska near the barn, tying down the last bundle of thatch for the goat shelter. "Danner's coming," she said. "He'll use whatever he can to make trouble." Yaska stood, fastening the rope. "Then we let him bring it. I don't want Ada frightened." "She won't be." Olivia didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the sky was paler than usual, stretched thin. "I've done everything right," she said. "Paid the land tax, kept the boundaries clear, even gave meat to the schoolhouse when the teacher got sick. And still, he thinks he can take whatever he wants." Yaska stepped closer. "It is not your fault he is small." She looked up suddenly. "You don't see me as weak, do you?" His face did not shift. "You carry grief without letting it rot you. That is endurance. Not many can." They stood there, the barn wall at their backs, the fields open before them. Olivia reached up and touched the edge of his shirt sleeve where it had frayed against the sun. "I'm not afraid of work," she said. "I know. I'm not afraid of being alone either. But I don't want to be." Yaska's breath caught, barely. Then he looked at her and said, "Then don't be." She stepped closer, slow and sure. There was no tremble in her hand when it rested against his chest. The warmth there was steady, the heartbeat beneath it strong. From the porch, Ada called for supper, her voice carrying across the yard. Olivia didn't move just yet. She held his gaze, her voice soft but certain. "I want you to stay. Not just for protection. Not just for now." Yaska's hand came to rest over hers. "I will stay," he said. "If it is with you." She nodded, and the wind moved through the cottonwood leaves like a whisper. There were no promises spoken, only the truth of what stood between them, two lives weathered, two hearts still open. Behind them, the sun slipped lower, casting long shadows toward the house that would now hold more than memory. Rain came in the night steady, driven by a northern wind that rattled the shutters and soaked the fields. Olivia rose early, lighting the stove while Ada slept curled up in a nest of quilts by the hearth, her breath fogging the cold morning air. The roof leaked in one corner of the kitchen, and she set a basin beneath it, watching as water plinked against the tin. Yaska appeared in the doorway not long after, his shoulders damp beneath a wool blanket. He carried a bundle of firewood, the bark dark with moisture. "You shouldn't have gone out in that," Olivia said, taking the stack from him. "There was no drywood left inside," he replied, brushing rain from his sleeves. "It will smoke, but it will warm." She took a kettle from the hook and placed it over the fire. "The calf pen's flooding. I can't get the bedding high enough." "I saw it," he said. "I'll move them to the shed. They'll fit for now." She hesitated, then reached for a cloth to dry his hands. "You're soaked through." "I've been wetter," he said. "That doesn't mean you should stay that way." He let her press the towel into his palms, and neither of them spoke for a while. The fire crackled between them. When the kettle began to hiss, Olivia poured water over the oats and stirred slowly. "I found one of the ledgers last night," she said. "The one with the land deed." Yaska looked up. "Is it in your name?" "Only partially," Olivia said. "It's still tied to my husband's. I need a judge to refile it in mine. That will give Danner a way-in." She nodded. "I could go to Fort Keogh. There's a clerk there who might help, but I'd need someone to ride with me. I won't leave Ada behind. I will take you." Her eyes met his. "It's over a day's ride. I know the road north. It's safer than the southern trail." She hesitated. "If Danner hears I've left the ranch, then we ride at first light and come back before he knows you're gone." She nodded, then looked toward the window, where the rain had softened to a mist. "I never saw myself asking for help this much." "You are not asking," Yaska said. "You are choosing not to carry everything alone." Later that morning, they packed light dried meat, corn cakes, and a small flask of water. Ada rode in front of Olivia, wrapped in her mother's shawl, her cheek resting against Olivia's collarbone. The autumn chill sank deep into the land, and the prairie rolled out before them in a hush of gold and gray. They passed no one until late day, when a rusted fence line marked the edge of a burned-out homestead. Olivia pulled her horse to a slow trot. "I remember this place," she said. "The Warners lived here. Left during the winter of '77, after their boy cracked his skull on the well stones." Yaska glanced at the collapsed roof. "There is no one to rebuild." "No," she said, "but someone should have." By nightfall, they reached a grove of cottonwoods near the river bend. The horses were lathered and tired, and Ada had fallen into a deep sleep against Olivia's chest. They made camp beneath a hollowed bluff, away from the wind. Yaska built a low fire with dry twigs he'd gathered along the ridge, careful not to let the smoke rise too high. While Olivia settled Ada on a bedroll, Yaska watched the trees for movement. Coyotes howled in the distance, but none came close. When Olivia returned to the fire, she crouched beside him, her coat drawn tight. "She's never slept out in the open before," she said. "She will be warm enough with you near." They shared a piece of bread between them, eating in silence. Yaska kept his eyes on the flames, but Olivia studied his face in the flickering light, the cut of his jaw, the scar along his cheekbone that she hadn't noticed before. "What was it?" she asked. He turned to her, puzzled. "The mark on your cheek." "A cavalry saber," he said. "Near Ash Creek. I was 17. She looked away, not out of discomfort, but with the weight of knowing. "You've seen more than most men twice your age." He didn't answer. "I don't know why I trust you the way I do," she said after a while. "But it feels like I've trusted you longer than these weeks allow." "You listen with your whole self," Yaska said. "Most people only hear what they want." She gave a soft laugh. "I never had the luxury of that." He turned toward her fully then, his voice quiet. "You do now?" The fire cracked once, sharp against the quiet, and she laid her hand atop his. He didn't move, didn't flinch. His skin was rough and warm. "I'm not ready to say what this is," she said. "But I know what it isn't. It isn't fear. And it isn't loneliness." He studied her, and something eased in his shoulders. "Then let it be what it is," he said. "And let it grow." She leaned against him, not out of exhaustion, but because it felt right. Behind them, Ada stirred once, then settled again. The moon rose faint and thin through the clouds, casting silver over the riverbed. In the hush of the grove, with the fire low and the wind soft, Olivia rested her head against Yaska's shoulder and let herself believe in something steady, something earned. And for the first time in years, she slept without waking. They reached Fort Keogh by midday, the sun breaking through a veil of high cloud, casting pale light across the parade ground and the low stone buildings. Olivia kept Ada close as they dismounted near the clerk's office. Yaska tied the horses and scanned the yard, his expression unreadable. A pair of mounted soldiers passed by without looking twice. Inside, the clerk was an older man with ink-stained fingers and a habit of clearing his throat before every sentence. Olivia handed him the page from the ledger, keeping her voice even. "I need to have this land deed updated. My husband passed 3 winters ago. It was never transferred fully into my name." The man studied the paper through a cracked lens. "If you've no male kin to sign off, you'll need a witness of standing. Someone the Army recognizes." Yaska stepped forward. "I served under Captain Reynolds. Campaigned at Little Goose." The clerk narrowed his eyes. "You got proof of that?" "No," Yaska said. "But I'm not lying." The man snorted. Never said you were. But it won't be enough. Olivia's hand tightened on the strap of her satchel. There must be someone who can vouch for me. The clerk leaned back, scratching behind his ear. You're that Morrison widow, aren't you? From north of Miles? She nodded. Sheriff Danner sent a wire. Claimed he needed the Army's support investigating a land dispute. Yaska's jaw tensed. Olivia stepped closer to the counter. There is no dispute. That land is mine. It was my father's before it was my husband's. I've worked it every day since he died. The clerk looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. There's a chaplain here. Served as a legal witness in other filings. You bring him your story, and he signs, I'll process the transfer. But it'll be slow a few weeks, maybe longer. I'll take that, she said. Where's the chaplain? They found him near the infirmary, tending to a soldier with a cracked rib. He was young, wore plain clothes instead of vestments, and listened without interrupting. When Olivia finished speaking, he asked only one question. Do you have the child's birth record? She pulled it from her satchel. He read it, nodded once, and signed. By late afternoon, they were riding back across the flats south of the Yellowstone. The wind had picked up, pushing dry seed pods across the trail like tiny dancers. Ada dozed against Olivia's back again, her arms around her waist. You didn't speak much inside, Olivia said once they were alone on the trail. I have learned when to speak, Yaska said, and when to stand beside someone who already knows what to say. She glanced at him, the outline of his face clean against the sky. You've become part of this without forcing your way in. He turned toward her. You did not close the door. They rode until dusk, then pressed through the last stretch of grassland toward the house. Smoke curled from the chimney. Nothing was out of place. Olivia slid down first and carried Ada inside, laying her gently in the bedroll beside the stove. Yaska unsaddled the horses, then joined her just as she poured water into the basin to wash. She looked up, candlelight flickering between them. I used to think safety meant being alone, she said. That if no one was close, no one could hurt me again. He didn't interrupt. But now I see it different. Safety's not about distance. It's about who stands beside you when the wind comes. He stepped closer. Then let me stand with you. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. I want that. I want you. Yaska's breath deepened. You are not a woman that needs saving, but I will walk beside you as long as you'll let me. She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. You already do. That night, she did not sleep alone. By the end of the month, the deed arrived bearing her name alone. Danner never came word had passed that Fort Keogh had recognized her claim, and with it, had cast his threats into dust. The sheriff never spoke to her again. The ranch held through the first frost. Yaska built a second gate near the south field, and Ada insisted on painting it blue. Olivia started planting winter wheat, and for the first time, they had help that didn't vanish when the work got hard. They married quietly, with only the Brents and the widowed schoolteacher attending. Ada stood between them in a dress Olivia had sewn from her mother's old curtain, beaming as Yaska placed a carved ring of ash wood on Olivia's hand. Through each season, they worked side by side not as savior and saved, but as two people who had chosen each other freely. Olivia taught Ada to read the weather and count calves. Yaska taught her to track deer and move gently around animals. The girl grew quick and bold, her laughter echoing across the field like a bell. When spring returned, the prairie bloomed early. Olivia planted a row of sunflowers along the fence line. Yaska built a bench beside them, where they sat in the evenings, their hands always finding one another's, their hearts no longer guarded. And when the wind rose, as it always did, it found them not as strangers or survivors, but as partners, as family, and as home.